Apple didn't update any of its iPads in 2023. So what does this mean if you're considering picking up an Apple tablet? Should you continue to wait, or will it be a long time before we see the iPad 11th generation enter the scene? 24 iPad update. Apple held an event on May 7. As expected, 2 new iPad Air models and 2 new iPad Pro models were unveiled. The standard iPad was not updated at that event, but the price has dropped and the 9th gen model has been removed from the lineup. When will the iPad 11th gen be released? For the past few years, Apple has had a steady release schedule for its cheapest iPad. It would normally appear alongside the latest iPhones in the September event and hit the stores before the end of that month. 2022 saw a slight adjustment to this with a revamped iPad 10th generation making its debut that October alongside the new iPad Pro M2 and Apple TV 4K 3rd generation. Here's when the previous iPad models launched. iPad 10th generation in October 2022. iPad 9th generation in September 2021. iPad 8th generation in September 2020. iPad 7th generation in September 2019. iPad 6th generation in March 2018. That's once a year for the last 5 years, which makes it look like Apple missed its deadline in 2023. The company updated no iPads at all in 2023, perhaps because of the focus on preparing Vision Pro for launch. Incidentally, the iPad mini has gone even longer without an update, but as of May 2024, the iPad Air and iPad Pro have now been updated. So when can we expect an update to the standard iPad? The iPad and iPad mini may arrive in the form of a press release later in 2024. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo believes that all 4 iPad lines, standard, mini, Air, and Pro, will be refreshed in 2024. What's happened to the iPad 9th Gen? The 9th generation iPad was still being sold prior to the spring event on May 7, but as expected, Apple has now removed that model from sale and brought the price of the 10th gen model down. Kuo predicted that the 9th gen iPad would be phased out before the end of 2024. The 9th gen iPad was the only iPad that still has a Lightning port, and legislation from the EU requires companies to ship new products with USB-C ports. How much will the iPad 11th gen cost? Pricing was consistent up until the arrival of the iPad 10th generation in 2022, but following the redesign, Apple upped the price quite significantly. To offset this, Apple kept the iPad 9th generation in production and at the same price in the US, but even that model had a hefty price hike in the UK and mainland Europe, up to $399 and $499 respectively. Since the removal of the 9th gen iPad from the lineup, Apple has dropped the price of the 10th gen model around the world. It is likely that pricing for the 11th gen iPad will be higher, that Apple will keep the 10th generation in the lineup. What features will we see in the iPad 11th gen? As the iPad 10th generation was a major overhaul of the format, we don't expect another great leap in technology with the 11th generation model when it appears. With Apple reported to be refreshing the entire iPad lineup in 2024, only an iterative update is on the cards. Processor. The most obvious area will be the chipset. The current iPad 10 runs on an A14 chipset, which also appears in the iPhone 12 range and iPad Air 4th generation, with the iPhone 15 range now using the A16 chipset. This would suggest that the new iPad 11 would get an upgrade to something closer to that. Display. As the display size was increased from 10.2 inches to 10.9 inches with the iPad 10 refresh, we'd say there's little chance of anything changing there. One thing that might have been likely was a move to support the Apple Pencil 2nd gen, as the iPad 10 only supported the first Apple Pencil iteration, which may be discontinued. The recent introduction of the Apple Pencil USB-C and its support on the iPad 10 makes us think that this is the solution on offer to anyone who wants an Apple stylus. Cameras. The cameras on the iPad 10th generation all seem pretty decent for a device in this class, with a new placement in landscape mode making it better for video calls, especially with support for center stage that keep you in the middle of the screen even if you move about. Apple may eventually add Face ID, as at the moment Touch ID via the power button is the only biometrics on offer. Storage. If there's a standout upgrade that could make life easier for people, it's storage. Apple keeps marketing the iPad as a laptop replacement, but then cripples the base model with only 64 gigabytes of storage, which you have even less as iPadOS and the built-in apps take a chunk of that space. It's time Apple moved its entry-level tablet up to 128 gigabytes, so that wouldn't be a huge surprise if it happens when the iPad 11 finally rolls around. People are eagerly anticipating the new iPad, hoping it will feature improved processing power, compatibility with Apple Pencil, and enhanced display characteristics. Analysts and consumers have been speculating about potential upgrades and pricing, using previous iPad releases as benchmarks. This common thread of expectancy speaks to the brand loyalty and market excitement that Apple commands with each new potential release. Some industry speculations align with Apple's history of fall product releases, pointing toward a possible October 2024 release window. Supply chain reports hint that Apple might start ramping up production for a new iPad model in the second half of 2024. Apple might be intentionally holding the iPad 11th generation launch until the holiday season of 2024 to boost sales. Analysts like Ming-Chi Kuo believe Apple may not have major upgrades planned for the entry-level iPad in the near future. The upcoming 11th generation iPad is expected to come with new improvements in design, performance, and features, fitting of Apple's evolving ecosystem. The iPad 11th Gen will likely support iOS 18 or the latest iPadOS update. Apple aims for seamless integration with services like Apple Music and Notes. Compared to competitors like Android tablets and even Apple's own MacBook Air, the new iPad will look to offer a distinct mix of portability and power. Accessories like the Apple Pencil and Magic Keyboard should be compatible. Additional features may include better support for USB-C and enhanced Touch ID. So that's so far we know about the iPad 11th Gen. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more updates on the 11th Gen iPad. Thanks for watching.